Good morning, students. Today we will discuss the effect of mild, moderate and severe exercise on cardiorespiratory parameters. So the today's learning objectives are: what exactly is exercise? What are the grades of exercise and its features? How does our cardiovascular system respond to exercise? And what is the response of respiratory system to exercise? Now, what is physical fitness? Is physical fitness and exercise same, or can they be interchanged, or are they different? Now, coming to physical fitness, it is the ability to carry out our daily tasks with vigor and alertness without undue fatigue, and you're also able to meet unforeseen emergencies. So, you have to be physically fit, which means it involves fitness of various systems of the body. And then when it comes to exercise, exercise is a period of enhanced energy expenditure by the skeletal muscles. So when you are doing exercise, there is lot of fuel consumption, and when fuel is consumed, there is increased oxygen consumption, and simultaneously there is increased carbon dioxide production. So we can say that exercise, it represents a challenge to our homeostatic control of internal environment. So to achieve control of various systems, we have to do a lot of complex adjustment in terms of metabolism, respiration, circulation, as well as temperature regulation. So all these have to get coordinated so that the body can adapt very well to the exercise. Now, coming to the types of exercise, we have isotonic and isometric. So this is what is expected at your level. Now, what do you mean as isotonic exercise? Now, in isotonic means iso is same, tone is tension. So in isotonic exercise, the tension in the muscle remains same, whereas there is change in the length of the muscle. So if you look here, the length of the muscle changes, whereas the tension remains same. And when it comes to isometric exercises, so iso is same, metric is length. So in isometric exercises, the length of the muscle remains same, whereas the tension within the muscle keeps on changing. So this is an example. Okay, so you hold a bar and you tighten it. So here this is a relaxed one, and when you tighten it, see the contraction of the muscle. It causes increase in the bulk. So let us see what is WHO classification of the muscular exercises. Now, as per WHO, the exercise is given different grades depending on what is the heart rate achieved during that exercise, how much oxygen is being consumed during that form of exercise, and next is MET. MET is nothing but metabolic energy expenditure. So how much oxygen you are utilizing, that is being expressed as MET, that is metabolic energy expenditure. So 1 MET in an average adult man means the resting O2 is 250 milliliters per minute. And when it comes to women, for women 1 MET is equal to resting O2 uptake of 200 ml per minute for an average woman. So now let us see what are the grades of exercise. Now, grade 1 is labeled as mild level, where the heart rate is achieved equal to or less than 100 beats per minute. The oxygen is consumed at a rate of 0.4 to 0.8 liters per minute. And when it comes to the percentage of oxygen consumption, it is equal to or less than 25, and MET achieved is equal to or less than 3. Coming to grade 2, which is labeled as moderate level of exercise, here the heart rate ranges between 101 to 125 beats per minute. the oxygen is consumed at a level of 0.8 to 1.6 liters per minute. The rate of oxygen consumption ranges between 25 to 50%, whereas MET is achieved between 3.1 to 4.5. Coming to grade 3. Now grade 3 is labeled as heavy type of exercise. Now during heavy exercise, the heart rate is achieved between 126 to 150 beats per minute. Oxygen is consumed at a rate of 1.6 to 2.4 liters per minute. And the percentage of oxygen consumed is 51 to 75%, and MET achieved is 4.6 to 7. Now grade 4 is the severe type of exercise which you do. Now in severe type of exercise, the heart rate is achieved more than 150 beats per minute. Oxygen is consumed more than 2.4 liters per minute, and coming to the percentage of oxygen consumption, it is more than 75%, and MET is achieved more than 7. So depending on what are the parameters achieved, we label that is that particular grade of exercise. Now let us see what are the on which parameters the various responses to exercise depend. So this is the whole list. So exercise depends on what type of exercise you are doing. That is whether you are doing isotonic exercise or isometric exercise. Coming to the degree of exercise, that is whether you are doing grade 1, 2 or 4. Then next, duration of exercise. If you do it for 30 minutes or 1 hour or 1.5 hours. Then cardiac reserve means to what extent your cardiovascular system can compensate to the increase in the metabolic demands. Coming to muscle power, whether it can sustain that much degree of exercise. Exercise training, whether you are trained or you are untrained. For example, the response to exercise is different in trained athletes and a person who is accustomed to sedentary lifestyle. Next is motivation. Motivation, it increases the degree as well as the duration of exercise. And nutritional status, whether your muscles basically the bulk of the muscle. So the bulk of the muscles, they keep on increasing in case of trained athletes. So depending on all these parameters, the response to exercise changes. Now let us see what is the oxygen consumption during exercise. As you know, exercise is a high energy expenditure state, means along with nutrients, we have to supply equal amount of oxygen to the exercising muscle. Now let's look here. Now at rest, the oxygen consumption is 250 ml per minute. Now as the intensity of the exercise increases, the grade of the exercise increases, you see there is a linear increase in the amount of oxygen which is being consumed. So there is linear increase till a particular level is assumed, that is the plateau is reached. Now next, even if you continue doing exercise after this grade also, the level of oxygen consumed do not increase. So this is the level of maximum oxygen consumption, which is called VO2 max. So what is VO2 max? Now VO2 max is defined as oxygen consumption beyond which there is no further increase in oxygen consumption with further increase in the severity of exercise. Though the degree and duration of exercise has been increased, there is no more increase in oxygen consumption beyond VO2 max. So this is what is the concept of VO2 max. Now VO2 max, for an average person, it is 3 liters per minute. Means at rest it is 250 milliliters per minute. VO2 max for an average person with sedentary lifestyle is 3 liters per minute. Whereas in trained athletes, it increases up to 5 liters per minute. So it means endurance training increases the level of VO2 max. Next, VO2 max is the best physiological indicator of a person's ability to continue severe work. The difference is seen if a person with sedentary lifestyle starts running, he can consume only 3 liters per minute. That is his maximum. So his work would be limited when his oxygen consumes gets limited up to 3 liters. And similarly, if the trained athlete, he starts running, his work will keep on, his oxygen consumption would increase up to 5 liters, means he can do more work as compared to a person having sedentary lifestyle. Thus, it is an indicator for highest attainable aerobic metabolism. Whenever oxygen is being consumed during metabolism, that is known as aerobic metabolism. Now, VO2 max, it gradually decreases with increasing age. So, as the child grows, the VO2 max will increase because it is also equivalent to our similar to our vital capacity. And the peak of VO2 max is achieved during early adulthood. And as you go towards increasing age, the VO2 max gradually starts decreasing. But remember this thing that VO2 max is limited by degree of cardiac output, not by ventilatory or oxygen diffusing capacity. Now you will come to know why I am telling this in the further slides. So remember, the limitation for VO2 max is cardiac output. So it is not because of respiratory system. Now let us see what is oxygen deficit and oxygen depth. I think you must have already read about it. Let us just brush it up. Now, the duration of exercise and post-exercise is divided into 3 different phases. So first is adaptation phase, then comes steady phase, and then recovery phase. Now, what happens in adaptation phase? Now in adaptation phase, as you look here, this is 250 ml per minute, the oxygen consumption. Now, as the duration of exercise goes on increasing, you see there is linear increase in O2 consumption till the plateau is achieved. Now, for example, in this graph, it is 750 ml per minute. So this is what is VO2 max. Now, in this scenario, if you look at this green structure, that is known as oxygen deficit. So adaptation phase begins with beginning of muscular exercise and VO2 consumption goes on increasing till VO2 max. And throughout exercise, an oxygen deficit, a state is achieved. Deficit means, what is deficit? It is some, you are trying to cover up whatever is not there. Means you are borrowing. Now coming to steady phase. Now in steady phase, if you see at the level of oxygen consumption, it remains steady. Means the plateau is there. So if the energy requirement is more, that would be taken care by the anaerobic metabolism, because this is the highest attainable aerobic metabolism. So as the duration of exercise goes on increasing, the energy requirement is increasing. So to compensate that, anaerobic metabolism will come into picture, resulting in breakdown of creatine phosphate and muscle glycogen. It is also associated with that. So if the oxygen consumption crosses more than 2 liters per minute, there is release or formation of lactic acid. So lactic acid is formed and that gets released into circulation. Now coming to anaerobic metabolism. Now here, whichever lactate is being formed, it is efficiently buffered by bicarb, because lactate is acidic in nature. So if lactate keeps on pouring into metabolism, that can result in acid-base imbalance during exercise. So to counteract this excess of lactate, bicarb will be buffering it simultaneously. And this bicarb is achieved by because bicarb is been acting as a buffer, the extra carbon dioxide which has been formed is removed by hyperventilation. So here it is metabolic acidosis compensated by respiratory alkalosis. In trained athletes, they are more tolerant for lactic acidosis because their VO2 max is higher. Now coming to recovery phase. Now, once you have, during oxygen deficit, you have tried to use the oxygen reserves. Now, the oxygen reserves present in our body are the dissolved form of oxygen which is present in the plasma and the myoglobin stores. So, during this oxygen deficit, you are utilizing all these stores. Now, in recovery phase, it is a time when all these reserves are again replenished, because replenishment is important for the next activity, whichever you plan. It could be within the same day or the next day. So recovery phase is characterized by an oxygen depth state, means post exercise there is increase in oxygen consumption. For example, you have been running for almost 2 kilometers. Now, once you stop running, your respiratory rate doesn't come normal immediately. You continue to hyperventilate even after 10 to 15 minutes after stopping of running. Why this happens? Because we have to replenish the oxygen stores. Now, during exercise, body uses the stored form of oxygen. So after exercise, the stores have to be replenished. Means we are repaying whatever oxygen you have utilized. So what is the importance of this recovery phase? Now look here. Now ATP, this muscle for muscle contraction. Now the red represents intense exercise. Means whatever the creatinine, phosphate and glycogen, all these get converted into ATP form, which is being utilized by the muscle for contraction. So during recovery phase, whatever lactate was produced during anaerobic metabolism, that gets removed off. Second thing is, we have to replenish back the ATP and the phosphoryl creatinine stores. Third, we also have to replace whatever the oxygen was being released from the myoglobin. And fourth important is the dissolved oxygen which was utilized from the tissue fluids as well as the blood, we have to put it back into place so that the body is again ready for next exercise. So this is the importance of recovery phase. Now coming to lactate threshold. Now as you see in the circulation, this is known as Cory's cycle. This is also an important question in biochemistry. So coming to lactate threshold, lactate, it is a primary byproduct of anaerobic metabolism. So when glucose undergoes anaerobic metabolism, lactate is the byproduct. Now during mild exercise, whatever lactate is being produced is removed as fast as it enters into circulation. For example, some 5 ml of lactate was produced, so that is efficiently removed during mild exercise. But when it comes to severe grade of exercise, the rate of lactate formation and its entry into circulation is far beyond the rate of removal. Means the Cory's cycle is not, the formation of lactate is beyond this Cory's cycle. Now in Cory's cycle what happens? Lactate which is formed gets converted to pyruvate, which is either utilized by the cells for metabolism, or some of the pyruvate gets converted to glucose, and glucose again re-enters into circulation so that it can be utilized by the exercising muscles. So the conversion of lactate to pyruvate and glucose has got a particular limit. So if the production of lactate is beyond this conversion of lactic acid into glucose, then what will happen? Lactate will start accumulating in the body. So this is what would happen. Lactate is a cause of fatigue in exercising muscles. So lactate threshold is a point at which the blood lactate continues to increase above the resting level. Means the rate of production is more than rate of removal. Then that's why lactate threshold is an important marker for endurance performance. Once lactate starts accumulating within the skeletal muscles, it is one of the reasons for fatigue induction and also a reason for cramps in the muscles. In highly trained endurance athletes, the lactate threshold occurs at much higher percentage of their VO2 max. Now, at tissue level, what all things happen? This is a very easy representation of what happens during exercise. That is exercise, there is shift to right. So shift to right means there is decrease in pH, more acidic because of formation of lactate. Second, because during exercise there is lot of heat production, there is increase in temperature. As lot of fuel is being utilized by exercising muscles, there is increased production of carbon dioxide. So the partial pressure of CO2 increases, as well as there is increase in 2,3-bisphosphoryl glycuronate. Now coming to body heat. Now the metabolism of the nutrients leads to lot of energy production within the cells. Now whichever energy is being released, out of that 75 to 80% is because of the intercellular reactions which are occurring within the cell. Whereas because of muscle work, it contributes only 20 to 25%. Means that heat is quite less as compared to that of heat which is being produced due to intracellular reaction. So whatever heat is being produced during muscular activity is utilized to overcome the viscous resistance of the muscle, as well as to overcome the friction of the blood flow within the vessels. Now during endurance training, the temperature of the body can increase up to 102 to 103 degrees Celsius. Now, to compensate this increase in temperature of the body, we have a very good compensating mechanism, that is sweating. So because of sweating, the heat gets eliminated and the body temperature is being maintained within the normal range. Because if the temperature of the body increases beyond 106, it can be dangerous for the cells of the body. Now, sweating, there is loss of sodium and basically fluid. So, because there is loss of fluid from the body during exercise, there is almost decrease in the fluid component by almost 15%, which leads to hemoconcentration. Means in the blood, the plasma volume decreases by 15%. So there is relative hemoconcentration. Is this? So look at this picture. Okay. So during exercise, what is going to happen? For example, if there is 12 gram of hemoglobin and here it is 36% of hematocrit. During exercise, as the plasma volume decreases, there is relative hemoconcentration. Now, is there a use of this hemoconcentration? Yes. There is, as there is relative hemoconcentration, for that volume of blood, there is increase in RBC concentration, which will enhance the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. And also the plasma protein concentration increases. So there is increase in buffering capacity of that blood. But the disadvantage is the blood is becoming viscous, which will offer resistance and decrease the blood flow. So this is one thing you have to remember during exercise. Now let us see what is the CVS response to exercise. Now during exercise, there is increase in the skeletal muscle blood flow. Then, because the blood is being diverted or needs to be diverted towards the exercising skeletal muscle, there should be redistribution of the blood flow within the body. There is increase in cardiac output. There are some blood pressure changes, as well as changes in the blood volume, which has been discussed before. Now let us see, at the onset of exercise, what happens? Now, as we know, the parasympathetics, they supply the SA node and the AV node, whereas there is no parasympathetic innervation to the ventricles. Now, when it comes to sympathetic nervous system, it supplies the conducting system as well as the atria and the ventricles. So, at the onset of exercise, what is going to happen? There is adrenal medulla stimulation, which occurs at HPA level, that is our hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So that is our flight and fight mechanism. So once the adrenal medulla gets stimulated, it will cause release of epinephrine. And as we know, epinephrine is sympathomimetic molecule. So it will act on the heart to increase heart rate, as well as at the onset of exercise, there is another phenomenon which occurs is withdrawal of the parasympathetic effect on the heart. So because of which there is increase in the heart rate at the onset of exercise. Now coming to the skeletal muscle blood flow. Now the cardiac output at resting level is around 5 liters per minute. If you look at here, heart consumes around 5%, whereas muscles have around 20% of blood supply. Brain has around 15% of blood supply. So at rest, blood supply, blood flow to the skeletal muscles is at the rate of 2 to 4 ml per 100 gram per minute. But when you start exercising, the demands increase. That's why during exercise, the blood flow increases up to 50 to 80 ml per 100 gram per minute. Why this happens? First thing, because of exercise, there is a reduction in the partial pressure of oxygen at tissue level. Means there is relative hypoxia. Second thing, because of continuous exercise, there is release of carbon dioxide, lactate, potassium, hydrogen, adenosine. So all these have vasodilatory effect, which overrides the effect of norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is being released from the adrenal medulla because of sympathetic stimulation. Means the metabolic effects override the sympathetic effects. Second thing. Third one is accumulation of these all metabolites induces vasodilatation in the skeletal, in the blood vessels of the skeletal muscles. Once the vessel vasodilates, there is increase in the blood flow. So increase in the blood flow means there is more amount of nutrients and oxygen coming to the skeletal muscle. At the same time, the accumulated metabolites gets washed off. So that is an advantage of vasodilatation. So again, redistribution of blood flow. If you see here, brain almost it remains unchanged, whereas blood supply to the kidney reduces, to the skin increases, the skeletal muscle increases extensively. So again, the same thing. Okay. So here, the splanchnic, it drastically reduces from 24 to 12%. Skin, it increases from 9% to 16% because sweating has to be enhanced. So sweating means there will be increased cutaneous circulation. So that's why the blood supply towards the skin increases. So the skeletal muscle, it increases from 21% to 47% during mild exercise when the cardiac output ranges up to 9.4 liters per minute. If you look at cerebral, it remains almost same. I mean, look at the quantity of blood. It is 750 only. When you compare the percentage, it is relative. Okay. And look at renal. It falls from 1000 to 900 ml. During severe exercise, there is more compromised blood supply to the splanchnic and the renal because the most of the blood gets diverted towards skeletal muscles, almost 71%. Skin, again, it increases to 1900 because it has to compensate the sweating mechanism. Coronary, yes, it also increases up to 750 ml. So during mild exercise, the blood supply increases to skeletal muscles and the skin, whereas during severe exercise, it is more increased for skin and the skeletal muscles. Now let us see the blood flow. Now why to the skeletal muscles in the heart it increases? Because there is locally controlled arterial vasodilatation. Means here the metabolic theory comes into picture. Accumulation of metabolites like carbon dioxide, lactate, hydrogen, they induce vasodilatation so that the blood flow to that organ increases, and along with the blood flow, more amount of nutrients come in and there is washout of the accumulated metabolites. To the brain, it remains unchanged. Now in brain, there is no effect of increased sympathetic stimulation. The local regulation of brain tries to maintain constant cerebral blood flow despite increased sympathetic nervous stimulation. Skin. Now in skin, the blood flow increases because the hypothalamic thermostat, there is a resetting which causes vasodilatation of the skin arterioles, leading to increased sweating. Coming to GIT and kidney, because of sympathetic nervous stimulation, it induces venoconstriction, and simultaneously there is skeletal and respiratory pump which also causes venoconstriction. Now let us see the relationship between cardiac output, heart rate and stroke volume. So if you see here, stroke volume depends upon venous return, filling time, autonomic innervation, hormones like epinephrine, norepinephrine, and the status of the blood vessel, whether it is vasodilated or vasoconstriction. So depending on the diameter of the blood vessel, that decides the total peripheral resistance which is responsible for afterload. Now hormones, autonomic innervation and filling time, hormones and autonomic innervation decide the contractility, means the pumping activity of the heart, whereas the filling time and the venous return, it determines the stroke volume, that is your preload. So preload defines your end diastolic volume, because the amount of blood which remains after stroke volume is the end diastolic volume, whereas the afterload contractility, they decide what would be your end systolic volume. So stroke volume is nothing but end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. Now coming to the heart rate basically depends upon autonomic innervation and the hormones which decide your heart rate. And both stroke volume and heart rate when multiplied gives your cardiac output. So exercise is enhanced sympathetic activity. So there is increase in heart rate. Now, there is increase in heart rate, even the thought of exercise would cause increase in your heart rate. That is what is called in anticipation. And of course, during the muscular activity, the heart rate remains to increase. Now, why the heart rate increases? Because there is increased sympathetic discharge and simultaneous parasympathetic withdrawal. Second is accumulation of local metabolite like lactate and potassium. Next is Bain-Bridge reflex or your cardioaxillary reflex. Increase in the temperature of the myocardium, that also causes increase in heart rate. Humoral mechanism like adrenaline and noradrenaline, and peripheral reflexes. Now coming to what is maximum heart rate. So maximum heart rate depends upon the age of the person. So the formula given is 220 minus age. So that is what is the heart rate. For example, the age of the person is 20. So what is the maximum heart rate he can achieve? It is 220 minus 20. So it is 200. And depending on how much heart rate, how much percentage of maximum heart rate you achieve, that determines your grade of exercise. For example, here, in very light or warm-up exercises, you achieve 50 to 60% of your maximum heart rate. In light exercises, 60 to 70%. In case of moderate, you achieve 70 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. In case of hard or severe exercises, it can go up to 90%. Now let us see cardiac output in mild to moderate exercises. Now here, of course, there is increase in sympathetic discharge. That is one reason. And also there is increase in venous return due to the skeletal vasodilatation, and there are some muscle pumps working. One is your calf muscle pump. So that contributes to increase in venous return. Your respiratory muscles, that also contribute. So that is your thoracic pump. And there is increase in the cardiac contractility, that is the pumping of the heart because of increase in sympathetic activity. So in case of mild and moderate exercise, the cardiac output is basically determined by the sympathetic nervous system. Here, the Frank-Starling's law does not operate. Coming to severe degree exercise here, again, there is increase in sympathetic discharge, and in case of severe exercise, the Frank-Starling's mechanism comes into picture to increase the end diastolic volume. As you know, the end diastolic volume decides the stroke volume. So, in case of severe exercise, it is a state of high cardiac output status. But you have to remember one thing, that the Frank-Starling law has got a limitation. It does not allow increase in stroke volume once your heart rate becomes 120 beats per minute. So despite the heart rate increases up to 150, it would be as same of the stroke volume remains same in case of 120 or 150 or 200. So the limiting factor over here is stroke volume. Coming to total peripheral resistance. Now, the total peripheral resistance depends upon the radius of the artery as well as the viscosity of blood, which depends upon the hematocrit. So in case of exercise, what happens? Because of the metabolic effects, there is extensive arterial vasodilatation in skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, as well as skin. So which all these vasodilatory effects leads to fall in total peripheral resistance. Simultaneously, you know that in exercise, there is sympathetic activity. Sympathetic activity means there would be vasoconstriction in the other organs. But if you see the overall effect, this compensatory change, that is this vasoconstriction, which is sympathetic induced, is not capable of compensating the huge dilatation of the muscle arterioles. So if you look at the other organs like kidney, intestine, where the venoconstriction occurs, compared to that small venoconstriction, the vasodilatation is much more in skeletal muscles, heart, and skin. So overall, if you see, the net effect is decrease in the total peripheral resistance. Let us see the BP changes. Now, the mean arterial blood pressure has to increase in response to dynamic exercise because it has to maintain a proper tissue perfusion. And this is basically contributed by increase in the systolic blood pressure. Because of extensive vasodilatation, diastolic blood pressure remains at near resting levels. There is no much changes in diastolic blood pressure. The blood pressure which undergoes maximum change is systolic blood pressure. So with the increase in the level of activity of work, there is linear increase in systolic blood pressure, which can go as high up to 200 to 240 millimeters of mercury in case of normotensive person. So if you see here, static means isometric, aerobic is isotonic. So if you look over here, in case of isotonic, both systolic as well as diastolic blood pressure increases. Now you will ask me why during isometric the diastolic blood pressure increases. Because in case of isometric exercises, the length of the muscle remains same. There is increase in the tension. So the contracting muscles exert external compression over the arterioles. So that contributes to increase in total peripheral resistance, which leads to increase in the diastolic blood pressure in case of isometric exercises. Whereas you look at isotonic exercises, there is much more increase in diastolic blood pressure. The systolic blood pressure does not increase as high as in case of isometric exercises. But if you compare the systolic blood pressure over here and the diastolic blood pressure, as the intensity of the exercise goes on increasing, the diastolic blood pressure may fall. So in case of severe grade of exercise, there could be fall in diastolic blood pressure, which is usually the indication taken for severe exercise. In case of mild to moderate, it remains almost same. But in case of severe grade of exercise or heavy exercise, there is fall in diastolic blood pressure. So as you have seen in the graph, there is a tremendous increase in systolic blood pressure as compared to that of diastolic blood pressure. Now let us see why. First thing, there is increase in stroke volume and myocardial contractility. So the amount of blood and with the force with which the blood is being ejected into the aorta is high. And you know that that is getting converted into systolic blood pressure. And we have to increase the mean arterial pressure within the vasodilated blood vessels, because that much pressure is required to cause the minimum blood flow within the dilated blood vessels. And the target is to increase the blood flow in the exercising muscle. So whenever the mean arterial pressure increases, that causes stretching of the arterial wall to accommodate more blood, as well as we have to increase the pressure within the artery so that more amount of blood flows, and it enhances the demands of the skeletal muscle. And why diastolic blood pressure doesn't change much? Because vasodilatation occurs within the exercising muscle. And as you know, the diameter of the artery determines the total peripheral resistance, which determines the diastolic blood pressure. So, how this occurs? Because the mean arterial blood pressure increases because of resetting of the arterial baroreceptor mechanism. So as you know that if the blood pressure increases, there is a reflex mechanism which comes into picture to countercheck this increase in the blood pressure. So our baroreceptor reflex does not work in case of exercise. And it has been observed that post-exercise there occurs hypotension for the first 2 to 3 hours. I mean hypotension with not so much less. Some fall in the blood pressure below the pre-exercise resting level. So what is oxygen extraction? Now, during exercise, of course, the oxygen demands are very high. So the level of oxygen extraction is going to be increased as compared to that of resting level. So at rest, the arteriovenous oxygen difference is around 4 to 5 ml of oxygen per 100 ml of blood. And as it passes through the exercising muscle, this extraction goes on increasing. So during maximum level of work, the difference between the arterial and the venous oxygen level is almost 15 to 16 ml of oxygen per 100 ml of blood. Now coming to coronary circulation. Now, as we know, along with skeletal muscle, even heart has to work equally hard to pump that much amount of blood to the exercising muscles. So the cardiac demands are also metabolic demands are also very high, which are met by changes in the coronary circulation. So the three major determinants of myocardial oxygen consumption are heart rate, myocardial contractility, means the force with which the heart will pump the blood out, as well as the wall stress, means the stretching of the left ventricle. So during exercise, there is acute increase in the arterial blood pressure. So because of which there is increase in the left ventricular pressure and the wall stress. That causes increase in the myocardial metabolism, which causes increase in coronary blood flow. Now let us see how coronary blood flow increases. Now, because cardiac muscles have to pump very, more strongly and at a faster rate. So obviously there is increase in the metabolic demand, means the cardiac muscle needs more oxygen. So adenosine is the major determinant of coronary circulation. So as there is more of metabolism, there is more of adenosine produced as a byproduct, which causes vasodilatation of the coronary vessels. So as the vasodilatation occurs, the blood flow to the cardiac muscles increase, and that will meet the oxygen demand. So this is how the coronary blood flow circulation increases. So to summarize, we can say because of deep breathing, means hyperventilation, increase in the respiratory rate and the venous compliance, the venous return increases. Along with that, the skeletal muscle activity and this skeletal muscle activity, it causes increase in the accumulation of metabolites, which causes vasodilatation in the muscle. Sympathetic vasoconstriction occurs in other viscera like kidney and intestine. So all these cause increase in the blood flow to the skeletal muscle, that is redistribution of blood flow. Now, whenever the venous return increases, and along with that, there is activation of the sympathoadrenal system. So both of these try to increase cardiac output by increasing the heart rate as well as the stroke volume. So this graph says that as the percentage of maximum work goes on increasing, the heart rate goes on increasing till it achieves the plateau of maximum heart rate. It depends upon the age of the person. So heart rate increases because of increase in sympathetic activity and parasympathetic withdrawal. If you look at stroke volume, so as I have been telling that stroke volume is a limiting factor, because beyond the increase in heart rate up to 120, the stroke volume cannot increase beyond that. And why there is increase in stroke volume? Because there is increase in venous return as well as increase in myocardial contractility. Now coming to cardiac output. Now similarly, cardiac output is the product of heart rate and stroke volume. So as the intensity of the exercise goes on increasing, the cardiac output also goes on increasing because of increase in both heart rate as well as stroke volume. Now coming to total peripheral resistance. So if you see, as the amount of work goes on increasing, the peripheral resistance goes on decreasing. And why it decreases? Because of vasodilatation which occurs in skeletal muscle, heart and skin. Now let us see changes during. This is an example of isotonic exercise. So during heavy isotonic exercises, as the level of activity goes on increasing, there is increase in the systolic blood pressure, whereas the diastolic blood pressure remains near normal due to extensive vasodilatation within the exercising muscle. And the net effect is there is increase in the mean arterial pressure to maintain the increasing blood flow within the exercising muscle. So why this increases? Because cardiac output is more as that compared to fall in total peripheral resistance. So the hemodynamics during different exercises can be summarized as: during isotonic exercises, there is volume load on the heart, whereas during isometric exercises, there is pressure load on the heart. If you see cardiac output, it increases, whereas in isometric, there is minimal change. If you compare BP, there is quite high increase in systolic BP, whereas diastolic BP remains near normal. And if you compare systolic and diastolic, there is increase in both in isometric exercises. If you compare total peripheral resistance, it falls in isotonic, whereas it increases in isometric. When it comes to oxygen consumption, it increases in isotonic, whereas it is minimal in case of isometric. So the ability of the CVS to deliver blood and oxygen determines the exercise capacity. Here, cardiovascular response is a limiting factor because the stroke volume does not increase beyond a particular limit. Now let us see what happens at the level of oxygen in the lungs. Now, as you remember, this is what is a respiratory membrane. So at the level of RBC and the alveolus, from the alveolus, the oxygen diffuses into the RBC, and from the RBC, carbon dioxide enters into the alveolus. So this is the gaseous exchange which occurs across the respiratory membrane. Now, if you compare the time which is spent by the RBC in the pulmonary capillary blood bed, now this is very important because at rest, the RBC spends around 0.75 seconds in circulation. Means the point of contact between the RBC and the alveolus is around 0.75 seconds. And within how much time the RBC gets completely oxygenated? It is 0.3 seconds. So RBC is staying for a longer time after saturation in the alveolus in resting state. Now, during exercise, as the heart rate is increasing, so that much number of times the circulation is also increasing. So the time spent in contact with alveolus of the RBC reduces to some extent, but not less than 0.3 seconds. Okay. In case of expansion, means there is opening of the pre-capillary sphincters, which causes expansion of the capillary bed. So if the expansion increases, the time is sufficient to cause complete oxygenation of the RBC. And if the expansion does not occur, there are chances of desaturation, means the RBC is not getting completely oxygenated with oxygen. So in exercise, there has to be expansion of the pulmonary capillary blood to accommodate the increased cardiac output. If it does not increase, the expansion does not occur, that will increase the blood velocity, which will lead to less time for gaseous exchange, which is actually hazardous because there is chances of desaturation. Now let us see the respiratory response. So in average young male, the resting oxygen consumption is 250 ml per minute. Whereas in endurance, it can go, with high intensity of exercise, it can go up to 500 ml per minute. So the ventilation can increase from 5 to 6 liters per minute up to more than 100 liters per minute. That is your minute ventilation. That is tidal volume into respiratory rate. So how it has come, for example, the respiratory rate is 12 per minute and the tidal volume is 500. So 5 into 12 is 6 liters. So that is what is resting. Now, during exercise, both the respiratory rate as well as the tidal volume increases. So it can increase up to level of 100 liters per minute. So this ventilatory control is an integrated process. So what are the factors involved? First is the central controller, that is your medulla and the pons, where the respiratory centers are located. Second is the skeletal muscles. Third is the muscles of the chest wall and the diaphragm. Means the input from all these muscles also control the medullary centers and the central and the peripheral sensory receptors. The central receptors are located in the medullary centers, the respiratory centers, whereas the peripheral sensory receptors are your chemoreceptors and the baroreceptors. So during exercise, the input from all this causes increase in rate and depth of ventilation, which is adjusted close to the metabolic rate. So depending on your intensity of exercise, there is increase in rate as well as depth of ventilation. So this is how the brainstem control of breathing occurs. Now this is your inspiratory center, that is a dorsal group of neurons. So pneumotaxic center has got an inhibitory effect, whereas the apneustic center has got excitatory effect. Coming to the peripheral chemoreceptors, it is basically the level of oxygens which control how much amount of, controls the level of inputs to the inspiratory center via the cranial nerve 9th and 10th. That is the aortic bodies and the carotid bodies. So they give input about the oxygen levels. When it comes to central chemoreceptor, it is basically the concentration of hydrogen which controls. Now, how is hydrogen produced? Now, carbon dioxide can easily diffuse across the blood-brain barrier, whereas hydrogen cannot. So the carbon dioxide which diffuses across the blood-brain barrier, in CSF, it will dissociate, it will combine with water to form carbonic acid, and which further dissociates to form bicarbonate and H+. So whenever the carbon dioxide levels increase, there is increase in H+ concentration within the CSF, which will go and stimulate the central chemoreceptors. And there are lung receptors and the muscle joint receptors, which also give input to the inspiratory centers to cause increase in the rate and depth of inspiration via the phrenic nerve. So as you know, the respiratory muscles are supplied by phrenic nerve. So the efferent pathway goes via the phrenic nerve. So what are the ventilatory changes which occur during exercise? So why they occur? Because increase in blood lactate level leads to fall in pH. So all these go and stimulate the carotid bodies, which cause increase in minute ventilation. There is also rise in the body temperature, which is attributed to the exercising muscles. Third one is increase in the concentration of blood catecholamines, means our sympathetic activity is very high. So because of continuous stimulation of the adrenal medulla, there is increase in concentration of the adrenaline levels, which also go and stimulate the carotid bodies. And also there is feedback from the skeletal muscle proprioceptors. So all these contribute to the ventilatory changes during exercise. So during exercise, there is increase in oxygen consumption, increase in carbon dioxide production, so increase in ventilation. So all this cause, if you see, because of increase in ventilation, there is no much change in partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide, as well as no much change. There can be fall in pH because of accumulation of lactic acid. So if you compare the venous blood, yes, there would be increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide because of continuous excessive production of carbon dioxide from the exercising muscle. Now the pulmonary blood flow, it increases because of increase in cardiac output, increase in pulmonary blood flow because of expansion of the pulmonary capillary blood, and decrease in physiological dead space. And when you compare the oxygen hemoglobin curve, there is shift to right, because of which there is decrease in affinity for oxygen and increase in P50, that is your saturation levels. So in mild to moderate exercise, the ventilatory response is directly proportional to the metabolic demand which is being imposed by exercising muscle. Minute ventilation is gradually increased in about 2 to 3 minutes. And first change to occur in pulmonary ventilation is first increase in tidal volume, and then the rate of breathing increases. And fourth one is, along with that, there is increase, there is bronchodilation because of sympathetic stimulation. As you know, sympathetics cause bronchodilation. So the bronchodilation increases, there is increase in alveolar ventilation, and the dead space to tidal volume ratio decreases. Because of all these changes, there is increase in oxygen transfer from the alveoli to the blood to exercise. So this tries to maintain the oxygen saturation percentage in RBC. As there is more amount of oxygen available, which meets the mitochondrial oxygen requirement, and the level of aerobic metabolism is maintained. As you know, anaerobic would induce lactic acid production and would reduce the endurance level. And the exercising muscle keeps on adding more of carbon dioxide, that causes increase in venous carbon dioxide, partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Because there is increase in the rate of ventilation, means a sort of hyperventilation that causes washout of the CO2. So that is another compensatory mechanism which occurs to, a mechanism by which the body can get rid of excess of carbon dioxide. Now let us see what happens in severe exercise. Now in severe exercise, the ventilatory rate goes on increasing as the steady phase, means the duration of exercise continues. So with the greater intensity of exercise, there is more of oxygen extraction, which leads to wider shift in oxygen content of arterial versus venous blood, means the AV, arteriovenous oxygen difference, is increased. Now, it can happen that because of sustained prolonged phase of severe exercise, it can reach the anaerobic threshold. So once you reach anaerobic threshold, what is going to happen? That is also known as lactic threshold. The accumulation of lactic acid would continue to increase in the blood, that would decrease the blood pH. So at this point of time, the alveolar ventilation, it parallels along with minute ventilation so that the acid-base balance is maintained. Now, as there is pooling of lactic acid within the circulation, it is a state of metabolic acidosis. So there is compensatory respiratory alkalosis to maintain acid-base balance. That's why the respiratory rate sometimes remains to be elevated even up to 1 hour after heavy exercise. So we can just summarize as, due to exercise, there is increase in oxygen consumption, there is increase in carbon dioxide production, and there is increase in ventilatory rate. So because of increase in ventilatory rate, the arterial PO2 and PCO2 does not change much. And also the arterial pH does not change much during moderate exercise. Whereas because of accumulation of lactic acid, it can fall during strenuous exercise. Coming to venous PO2, yes, it would increase because it is accumulating carbon dioxide which has been produced from the exercising skeletal muscles. If you look at pulmonary blood flow and cardiac output, it is increasing. If you see the ventilation perfusion ratio, it is evenly distributed throughout the lung, means each and every part of the lung participates in this respiratory response. The physiological dead space reduces, and if you look at oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, there is shift to right. Coming to CVS response, we can summarize as, first thing, there is brain exercise center which resets the arterial baroreceptor, because of which there is parasympathetic withdrawal and increase in sympathetic output. Because of this, there is increase in cardiac output and increased vasoconstriction. Now, the exercising muscle, they stimulate the mechanoreceptor or the proprioreceptor which are present in the muscle. And because of exercise, there is accumulation of lot of metabolite which induces vasodilatation, as well as they go and stimulate the chemoreceptors. So all these give inputs to the medullary vasocenter to again enhance the sympathetic stimulation in the heart. Dilatation of arteriole causes increase in the muscle blood flow. So exercise is very good for health. In this corona crisis, stay home, stay fit, and stay healthy. Thank you very much for your patient listening.